You're listening to the House Hacking Podcast, the blueprint for one of the best financial life hacks there is. House hacking. If you are looking to get ahead financially or learn about the easiest way to get started with real estate investing, then you are in the right place. Stay tuned and join a community of individuals from all walks of life that use house hacking to eliminate their housing costs and accelerating their path to financial independence. Your number one place for all things house hacking.
Chantz, man, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm so excited to have you here. I mean, but before we really dive in, how you doing? Where are you calling in from?
Hey, Andrew, I'm doing great today. I'm calling out of the Seattle area in Washington.
Awesome. Well, I came across your account and I just loved your experience. I mean, for folks that are listening, let's start with just this high-level summary of your house hacking experience and real estate experience, and then we can sort of dive into the deals.
Cool, yeah. Just a little summary. I started with a triplex back in 2015. That actually led me to my second triplex, and then that kind of parlayed into my 24 unit that I just closed on last week.
Awesome. All right, and for folks that are listening, last week is literally here in January of 2021, closing deals in the middle of a pandemic. I love it. So let's start with that first triplex. I mean, in 2015, what were you doing? Were you renting an apartment? Did you own a home? Like, what was sort of your life situation? What type of work were you doing, and what made you want to start investing in real estate?
So my dad had been into real estate for as long as I could remember, and it's something I always wanted to do. And I had just graduated high school. I worked at Boeing. I got a job at Boeing. I was there for like 2 years, and then the opportunity came up where a triplex was available. And I was like, I don't know everything, but I definitely know that I'm interested. And I took a shot on it, and I got the loan. I got approved, and I closed.
Awesome. All right, so you took a shot on it. It just came up. I mean, what are some of the details of that triplex? How many bedrooms and bathrooms in the units? Was it like side-by-side units or like stacked up one on top of each other? And then what was the purchase price of it?
Cool. So this is 3 side-by-side units. You kind of walk down like an alley and a main road, and then it's in the middle of both, and there's just one sidewalk connecting all 3 of them. Little tiny yard. They're all identical units, all 2-bedroom, 1 bath. When I purchased it, the rents had been the same for 5 years. They're renting for $700 a month each. I paid $305 for it, but right when I bought it, I knew rents were way below market, so I knew I was getting into something good there.
Awesome. So $305, you knew rents were below market. Let's talk about the financing. What type of loan did you get? What did you have to use for a down payment?
So we did a FHA loan, which FHA will finance, up to a 4-unit building before you get into commercial or anything like that. I think the entire down payment was $25,000. I didn't have it, and my dad knew I was interested, and he actually loaned me that money, which I just paid back last week too, which is another cool story. But he gave me that money, and I got in there. My payment was $1,850 a month, and it was renting out for $700 a month each. I don't have the numbers on me right now, but it was just to where it was like paying for itself. And I didn't know anything, and I was like, well, that sounds good to me, right? Like we've got to make this work. We had one tenant that had been paying like the least, and he was kind of the worst tenant, so we had to kind of get him out of there. And then when I got him out of there, I moved into that middle unit and redid it while I was living there. And I rented one of the rooms out in there, so it was like I was living really for free at 18, or 21, and I was like, this is sweet. I wish I could just do this forever. And so I did. I held on to it, and we ended up raising the rents on a few of them, brought them to market level, and it ended up cash flowing nicely. And I was like, well, if it's this easy, right? Like, why don't we just do more of them?
Yeah. All right. So you're $1,850 a month on it. So Was it pretty easy to decide on which tenant you had to get out of? Because like FHA requires you to move into it and live in it for a year. I mean, how hard was it to get rid of that tenant in the middle unit? Did you have any problems, or was it basically, look, you know, I got to move in, you got to leave, and it worked out pretty well?
Yeah. So, I mean, as I walk the units, they're like, it's going to stand out which ones are in the worst condition. And this guy had like a punching bag on the outside in the alleyway with Christmas lights hanging up and over it. And I was like, wow, that'd be pretty cool. But it brings down the apartment, like the whole vibe of the whole thing. And I was like, this cannot be, like, this can't be a thing. And so I had to pick one, and they had been there for 4 years. So I was like, I'll just move into this middle one. And I let him know, and he was not happy about it. He claimed that he's the only one that did any of the work around there. And I was like, well, that might have been the case, you know, with the last owner, but with me coming in, that's not going to happen anymore. So he moved out hesitantly, but it worked out good. I did have my other tenants, which is my only eviction story I've ever had so far. I went and checked. I actually got all the windows in the whole building replaced, and they get to the bathroom window, the people installing it, and they pull it out, and they're like, hey, we can't replace this. Everything's rotted out. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, this isn't normal. And I go in there, and it's a tile bathroom, and they taped like a Safeway grocery bag over the tile. And then the Safeway bag fell off, and the tile fell off, and they continued to take showers, and the water got behind the wall, and the entire wall ended up having to be replaced. And I mean, I had owned it for 2 months, and I was like, I don't have a clue what I'm supposed to do here. Like, what do I do? And I mean, one thing led to another, and I ended up giving them an eviction notice. They left. I got a contractor in there. He fixed the whole thing. I got it repainted, and then I ended up moving into that one and renting out the middle one. So it ended up working out, but it was probably the biggest one issue I had with that building.
And did you really know what house hacking was? I mean, this is 2015. Like, the terminology started coming around a bit, or what, did your dad sort of coach you and say, hey, a triplex, you can live in one of the units and you'll live for close to nothing?
Going into it, I had no idea. I knew. My dad always used to say, having one horse pull your sled is not as good, but you're going to have three pulling the same one. He's like, if one doesn't work, you have the other two. And so he's like, just get in here and let the other two do the work. He's like, you're just going to maintain it and bring it up to where it should be, and you're going to go from there. And I mean, when I got in, and that was exactly what happened, it worked out. But going in, I mean, I had no idea. I just had to go with the resources I had. But when you have you don't really know until you jump in, and then when you finally do jump in and little things come up, it's like, I don't know what to do. I'm going to Google it. Google brings up resources like BiggerPockets and other forums, and it's a step by step exactly what you need to do. This is how you do it, and that's what I did.
It seems scary at first, and then once you actually start getting into it, you're like, oh, it's actually not that bad. I mean, sometimes it's pretty crazy, but you're like, oh yeah, this is pretty easy. I can call a contractor, I can Google online and find the answer and help guide me through. And part of it is you just got to do that first deal to get the experience.
That's exactly right.
Yes. All right. So you moved into the middle unit and you renovated it while you were living there. So what were the renovations that you did, and how much did you spend on that renovation?
So when I went in, I mean, it was basic repaint every unit, new light fixtures, new carpet, kind of new floorings in a few of them, like the bathroom needed new tile. But it wasn't anything major. I mean, I had to do, the two major things were the windows. I had all the windows replaced because when I got in, it was those old windows that, like, I don't even know, they like breathe.
Yeah, the old single pane windows.
Yeah, it was not good. And so I got a quote on that, and I borrowed from my VIP to fix it. And then the roof needed to be replaced. It was like leaking. And I was like, it's something that has to be done. So it's like not worth putting off because it's going to be the same price now, and it'll probably be more later if you don't take care of it, right? So I ended up getting the roof and the windows done. We got new gutters put on, and we just redid every unit and painted the outside. And I mean, it was more of like a lipstick thing, but it was the big ticket item things had to get done on the building, and it still worked out. I mean, I'm in a great market out here. I bought it in Marysville, Washington, and so it ended up appreciating quite a bit, and it worked out, yeah.
So pretty cosmetic stuff, especially the unit. So that you mentioned that middle unit, and then you went to that other unit. So when you moved out of that middle unit, what did you end up actually being able to market that apartment for rent?
So when I moved in, it was going for $700 a month when I bought it, and then I moved out and we got it to $995, and I got a great tenant. I mean, he was there the whole time until I just sold it, and it worked out. I mean, at first, you're scared on how you're going to find these tenants and what do you do? And it's like, if you do what everyone else does, you list on Craigslist. If you're in an area with, 100,000 population, you're going to find people, or your rent's too high.
Yeah.
Which then is like, you just go to Rent-A-Meter, you see what everyone else is at, you look at some resources, and you price appropriately, for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. I love the fact that you called out Rent-A-Meter. I mean, really, if you're in a decent sized city and you price it right and it's not crap, you're going to get a tenant. I mean, it's all about pricing and the quality.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned you sold it, but before we get there, so how long from when you moved in to when you moved out of the building was that period of time?
So I bought it in 2015, and then I sold it just like 3 months ago. But I mean, I only lived there for like 2 years.
Okay.
Lived there for 2 years, moved out for a little bit, and then I actually got into my second triplex while still owning this one, which we had to do a little bit of creative financing to make that happen.
Yeah. All right. So, and then that first one, how did you end up deciding to manage tenants? I know you said you put ads on Craigslist, but what'd you do for like rent collection, and what'd you do for, maintenance requests? Was it just, slide a check under your door, give you cash when they saw you? Did you use a tool? Did your dad give you any guidance?
My dad's guidance was totally like, I need cash. Don't hit me with any of the maintenance requests, and we're just going to let it ride. And it's like, that's not how I want to do it. I want it to, thrive for many years. And so I ended up finding a site called cozy.co. And I used that site I didn't use it really to manage, but I did it more for credit and background checks. Because I was like, I don't know how to do this. I don't want to make them fill out a form and then we have to like send it somewhere. And so literally, like, I would meet them when they walk the unit, and right when you meet people, you'll be like, this is going to be a good fit, or maybe it's not going to be. And then they send their email to cozy.co, and then they have to make, I think, that $40 payment or something, and Cozy runs their credit and background, sends it to you. It's available for like 30 days, and you can make an informed decision. And I mean, the biggest thing I've ever come across as far as having headaches in this is tenant placement. If you place a good tenant, you're going to have a good time.
Awesome. All right. So then what caused you to move out of that unit and then start looking for that second triplex?
I just knew that I wanted to grow, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. I just knew that I wanted to. And I think we already talked about it a little bit, but when I moved in, I mean, I had no money, and then I redid the roof and the windows, and I certainly had no money. So, I mean, that was like all I had going. And so I ended up starting a Facebook page, like a little motivational Facebook page. And it was just something to do in my pastime. And so, I mean, I think I started that in October, and it ended up growing and growing and growing. And I would, I had no money. So I was just kind of putting all my time and effort into this, and then redoing what I could around the triplex and trying to make it a good environment for everybody. And this page, actually, when I found another triplex, and I think it was like $15,000 to buy it, and it was a good deal. And right at that exact time, I had found a buyer for this Facebook page, and I ended up selling it to him for $18,000, and that was my whole down payment. It worked out perfectly.
Awesome. Selling a digital community and then using the money for a down payment on a cash flow producing asset. I love it. Mm-hmm. All right. So, we don't need to dive into all of the nitty gritty of the second triplex, but like, what'd you buy it for? What was it renting for? What type of work did it need? Just sort of walk us through that a bit. Yeah.
This second triplex is interesting. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in the front, and then 10 feet behind it is a duplex, a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, and a studio and a garage. And when I moved in, I mean, we had to completely rehab the entire front house, completely rehab the entire studio, and then the 2-bedroom, 1-bath was livable. So I ended up living in the 2-bedroom, 1-bath, redoing the house. I redid the house, and then I got the tenants. I got tenants placed in there, and I got tenants placed in the studio, and they turned out great. And I purchased it for $305. I think it was either $299 or $305. It was right there. And it appraised at $330, and so right away I was like, well, I'm onto something here. There's something going on. And when I noticed that the duplex was 10 feet behind it, I was like, I bet I could subdivide this. And that's what I ended up doing. I turned it into an airspace condo, and basically separated the properties. And I paid $299 for the front, and I sold the front for $325 a year and a half later.
What?
Yeah, so I own the back.
So then you basically free
and clear.
Yeah, basically.
And I mean, the back was completely renovated, and both units were renovated. It cash flowed because I didn't know any money on it, and the upstairs was renting for like $1,100, and downstairs was $850, and I was like, holy moly, man, I can never sell this. Like, this is great. And that's when I was like, I need to find more deals like this, and I ended up actually selling that last one. It just closed last week too. Everything happened so recently.
So you subdivided the lot, but I guess before I dig into that piece, so what type of financing did you use to buy that property?
So
I know you had mentioned you had the $15,000 from the sale, but what type of loan did you use?
I was only going to get approved for a conventional loan because I had used that FHA loan on my first triplex. And I was like, I was under the impression you can only have one ever. And it was, you can only have one at a time. And that might be different, but I actually got my brother to co-sign with me on the first triplex, and we refinanced it into a conventional loan. And then that freed up my FHA loan, and then I used that FHA loan again by myself to buy the new triplex.
Awesome. I love it. All right. So then, I mean, how'd you realize like subdividing the lot? I mean, this is such a crazy thing where you just literally like, hey, I wonder if this is big enough to subdivide it. Like, how did that really come about? And then how did you end up figuring out that process?
Yeah. So, I mean, it wasn't like it was three triplexes, like 3 units all connected. It was one large single family house, and then behind it was just it was like a little cabin. It was a 2-unit little studio and a garage, and it was right by Stevens Pass. So I was like, this is sweet. I'll just park here and go snowboarding. And I was like, I think I can do this. And so I called around to a few people. I ended up calling Oracle Land Surveying, and they came out and they're like, oh, you could definitely do this. And I called an attorney. And he's like, yeah, we do these all the time. He's like, if the building is 10 feet behind it, he's like, we can definitely subdivide it. And they shared water and sewer. And that was the big thing. I was like, well, do I need to get a whole nother water and sewer line? Because I was like, in my head, I was like, this is going to be like $100,000. I can't do it. And turns out it's not going to be that much. But it was still cheaper to just turn it into a condo association and then have each of them pay into an account to cover the water and sewer. And it worked out flawlessly. Yeah.
Yeah, so you basically made this own. You had a big lot with a single family and a duplex, and then you turned it into association. So, how much did it cost to get the survey done, the legal paperwork set up, and then get like the association put together?
I would say all in all, the whole thing was $15,000, and it probably could have been closer to $8,000 because I at first I did Oracle Land Surveying because I was gonna place the water and sewer line. Like, that's what I was gonna do. I didn't know there was another path. And then I was talking to the attorney one day. He's like, why are you doing all this? Like, why do you want to separate them completely? He's like, just turn it into a condo. And I was worried about the price I would get because condos tend to sell for lower compared to like a single family residence. And he's like, if you're, if you don't have all this money and you just want to separate them and collect rent, and the numbers worked out to where it would be paid off anyway. And I was like, this is a huge win regardless. And I was like, I'm just going to go the path that I know works, and it's a little cheaper.
Yeah, and I mean, technically, it's not like a true condo building like we think of, like a building with 100 units, and it's just equivalent of a condo association where everyone's paying in. All right, so then you ended up putting it on the market, and you sold it, and you just had that sale last week. Is that right?
I sold that first house probably 6 months ago.
Okay, 6 months ago. And then you said how much did you end up selling it for?
$325.
$325. And did that completely pay off the loan and then give you a little bit of cash, or how did that all end up working out?
I owed $275. And so, I mean, it completely covered it. I think I brought like $2,000 to closing. Then that was it. And I was like, this is the best $2,000 I've ever spent.
Yeah. Because you had your closing costs and realtor fees and stuff in there where after the loan payoff, you had to bring $2,000. But yeah, to have that other piece essentially free and clear. All right. So you had this really interesting house hacking experience. And then, I mean, this puts you to the 24 units. So did you end up selling that original triplex and then the rest of that other property to use for the down payment on the 24 unit, or was that sort of happening already and you just wanted the cash? Or like, let's sort of talk about this experience, because a lot of folks get into house hacking because they either want to get ahead financially and they don't want to be real estate investors, and they just say, I'm going to house hack for a couple years to like get a good financial foundation. And then there's a lot of the other folks that basically use house hacking as the springboard to a bigger real estate investing career. And that sounds like what you did here. So like, just talk to us about like what made you want to scale up to large multifamily, and then how'd you structure all these sales, and did that play in with the bigger units?
Yeah, it was definitely the second one, the springboarding. And a lot of it was thanks to the market I'm in. I'm out here in Marysville in the Everett area, and it's been blowing up. I mean, I paid $305 for the first triplex, and when I went to sell, it got appraised at $585, and that's what we sold it for. And I mean, after everything, I walked away with like $260,000, and I knew I didn't want to pay taxes, and I had been listening to Bigger Pockets for 5 or 6 years, and I was like, I'm going to do a 1031 tax exchange, and that kind of lit the fire where it's like I have 180 days to find and close on something, or I'm going to pay a large amount in taxes, and I was not going to do that. And so when I sold that building, I had that money, and I started looking for that 24 unit, and I didn't know really what I was looking for. I knew I was looking for something bigger, and I knew how much I could get approved for, and I had called a bunch of brokers who told me I couldn't get approved for loans and couldn't do this, I couldn't do that, and I was like, I know there's a way. Like, I've heard people talk about figuring this out. I know I can do it. I just don't know how, and that led me to a Michael Blanc podcast, and he just lit the fire of how to do it. And I brought on two investors for that deal. They own 20% and I own 80%. And it was the exact $260,000 went into this new building, bringing in $18,000 a month in rent. That was bringing in $3,000 a month in rent. And so it's just making your money work that much harder. And so since that closed, my other, the back duplex that was paid off just closed last week, I think. And so I just got all that money a few days ago. And so now it's like we're already kind of looking for the next deal, which is great. I mean, I could have bought that other building by myself, but I wanted to kind of get investors on board and show them that I know what's going on. And now I have money to put into my next one, so people take me a little more serious, right?
And did you take that as cash, or did you put that money in a 1031?
1031, yep.
Yeah,
yep.
Awesome. All right, and for folks that don't know, the 1031 exchange, it's an IRS rule where you can essentially take proceeds from the sale of a business, real estate, and then put it into a like-kind deal. That's either sort of similar or larger. There's a little more complex workings in it, but it's basically a way to defer taxes. So all that gain that you would have and normally would have to pay capital gains tax on, you roll it into the 1031 and then use those proceeds to buy the new asset. And then you don't get that 15 or 20% capital gains hit with, on a couple $100,000 of property increase. That's a big chunk of taxes.
Yeah.
All right. So this 24 unit, what was the purchase price of it?
Purchase price is 1.3.
And then you did the 260, you essentially rolled in, and then the two investors, did they bring their expertise? Did they put in sweat equity? Did they put in capital as well? I mean, how'd you end up structuring that?
They both put in $50,000, and so for that they got 10%. And so they're going to get 10% of the cash flow for 5 years, and then they're going to get any sort of equity appreciation when we go to either refinance or sell. And so, I mean, their IRR is going to be something 15 to 18%, which is right where you want to be for deals like that.
Yeah. Man, that is awesome. And I love this, like house hack to like creative splitting the property and getting the other one paid off and then rolling the money from the first one into this 24 unit. Now you've got this chunk of change from the second one that you're going to roll into the new property. But how much did you end up selling that back section for? Because I know you said you sold that front half for the 300 plus some. What did you end up getting on that back half?
It was listed at $275, and after we gave some concessions, we sold it at $270.
Man, I mean, literally, you just over the short period of time, I mean, you increased your net worth like $500,000 plus. Like, this is like the perfect house hacking real estate investing story. I love it.
Awesome. Yeah, it worked out well. Looking back, I didn't realize it, but I've been lucky.
Yeah. All right. So you're thinking back, like what lessons, like what's something you learned that, in those first two house hacks that set you up and was sort of like a success? You're like, man, that really helped me do the next deal. the first house hack help you do the second one, or something you learned from those first two to help you do the 24 unit?
Yeah, it's just getting started with that intent and consistency. I mean, if you're like, I'm going to buy this house, and it's like, if you can find a good little house for you to live in and it's got 3 or 4 rooms, that's house hacking too. It doesn't have to be a duplex or a triplex. And you get in there and you have someone cover your mortgage, and this raises over value over time, and you educate yourself the whole way along the way, which is what I did. It's like, you're going to be in this position where your only next logical step is to do it again or go bigger. And it's like, once you get bigger and you get to the point where you can hire these property managers, I mean, your time frees up. I mean, you're going to be on the phone for, an hour a week with the property manager, and that's it. And you can really do what you want to do, find these new deals and make it happen.
I love it. All right. So now, thinking back through that period of time, what did you screw up on? Where, like, if you could go back in time and tell your younger self, like, hey, don't do this. Like, what's like a lesson learned that you have that you can share to help other folks? What would you have done differently?
I would knowing the market how it is now, when I closed on that triplex, there was a duplex down the road that went up for sale for $170, and I was like, I know this is a good deal, and I had no money, but I knew it was a good deal, and I let a few people talk me out of it. And now, if that had happened now, I'd be like, I'm gonna go find someone with, money and good credit, and we're gonna start an LLC, and we're gonna buy this together, and in 2 years we're both gonna make $100,000, and it's a no-brainer now. But back then I was like, I can't put myself to risk like that, and it's just
hindsight, right?
Yeah.
I wish, like, when I was buying stuff like crazy in 2010, 2011, 2012, I was doing a ton of stuff, but I really wish, like, knowing what I know now, I was like, dude, you should have just leveraged as much as you can, raised private money, like, bought so much stuff. But, like, it's part of that lesson learned. I wish I could have bought 100 extra properties in that period of time. But it is what it is, man. This has been awesome having you on. I love your story. It's so cool. But before we let you go, we like to ask all of our guests a set of final 6 questions. Cool. Are you ready for them? Mm-hmm. Awesome. All right. So question number 1, what is your favorite personal finance related resource? So blog, book, podcast, YouTube channel, whatever it may be, personal finance related.
Yep. I'm going to have to go with Rich Dad Poor Dad. I mean, that book set it up for me, and it was more of a mind shift, which is what this game really is. It's changing your mindset to this abundance mentality and realizing that, 500,000 is a lot, but there's people that are making that in a month. And it's like, the money's out there and the deals are out there, and you just got to go out there and get them and be smart with your money. Crazy.
Yeah, that book shifted, so many folks' mindset of like, oh yeah, this cost me money, but I can take money and put it in here that now is an asset that produces extra money for me. And yeah, it's awesome. All right. So question number 2, what is your favorite real estate related blog, book, podcast, YouTube channel, whatever it may be?
So I've got my Burr shirt on right now from Bigger Pockets. So I'm going to have to give a huge shout out to them. I mean, I didn't know anything, and I listened to probably every podcast they've got, and it's irreplaceable. I mean, if you have questions, go there, and people walk you through their story on exactly how they did it, and it's true. And to get to my 24 unit, I listened to the Michael Blank apartment building and investing podcast, and that really lit a fire and showed you that it's doable, and anyone can make it happen that has the drive to do it.
Awesome. All right, question number 3. What's been your favorite travel destination so far? Could be around the world or somewhere just here in the U.S.
I haven't been to a lot of places yet. I'm planning on traveling once COVID ends here, but I've been to Hawaii, and I would like to go back. That's for sure.
Awesome. Well, I guess leads into question number 4. What's next on your travel vacation list? As soon as COVID's over, what's on the list to go to first?
Hawaii is definitely up there, but my uncle's been talking a lot about Costa Rica, so that might be on the list too.
Yeah. All right. And then question number 5, what is the biggest bucket list item you have not accomplished yet?
Can this just be anything?
Yeah.
All right. I want to, this is pretty wild, but I want to skydive out of a plane at Burning Man. So it's a possible thing, but you gotta get your skydive certificate. You gotta get tickets. You gotta go. You gotta get everything lined up, and that's what I want to do. So.
I've seen some of those pictures
Oh,
of the
they're
folks
incredible.
jumping out over top. Man, it's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, my wife doesn't let me skydive anymore, but we did some crazy skydiving things like in the U.S. One of my favorite places where I went skydiving was actually in Argentina.
Wow.
It was outside of Mendoza, and the Andes Mountains were all in the background. It was epic.
Jeez,
but
yeah.
you should do that, and then make sure to share a picture with us. I would love to see that.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. All right, and then the sixth and final question is, what is your favorite life hack?
Wow. Favorite life hack. I would just have to say the connection we have with information right now is my favorite life hack. Being able to Google anything or call anyone or go on Bigger Pockets or listening to any podcast and it tells you exactly how to do things. And that, I mean, without all that information that's at everybody's fingertips these days, my life would be way different. So
Awesome. Man, it has been so cool having you on the show. If folks want to check you out, how can they find you? Where's the best place to look you up?
I just started a new Instagram called Invest with Chantz, and Chantz is Chantz. You can find me on there where I'm going to go through some deals I'm doing and break down the numbers on that 24 unit.
Awesome. And I'll be sure to put a link to that in the show notes for everyone. So definitely
Cool.
go check out the show notes page for this episode. Again, man, thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, Andrew. Thank you for having me.